Good morning. We're going to begin today with a little bit of protest music. This is the song. This is "People Gonna Rise Like the Water." It doesn't really have a source, a composer. It's just something that kind of has evolved at various protests. A very simple little song that we're going to begin by singing here today. So it sounds like this. People gonna rise like the water, gonna face this crisis now. I hear the voice of my children saying, gotta shut this system down. So let's try that part together. People gonna rise like the water, gonna face this crisis now. I hear the voice of my children saying, gotta shut this system down. Moving to the next verse. People gonna rise like the water, gonna face this crisis now. I hear the voice of my great-granddaughter saying climate justice now. Add harmony if you want. People gonna rise like the water, gonna face this crisis now. I hear the voice of my children saying, gotta shut this system down. People gonna rise like the water, gonna face this crisis now. I hear the voice of my great-granddaughter saying climate justice now. People gonna rise like the water, gonna face this crisis now. I hear the voice of my children saying, gotta shut this system down. People gonna rise like the water, gonna face this crisis now. I hear the voice of my great-granddaughter saying climate justice now. Thank you.
Well, there's a staple today, so sit back. First, tax receipts are at the back. Save a stamp, please take your tax receipt home. Next announcement. Due to a previously scheduled outside rental, the date for the 2025 AGM has to be moved. It's going to be on Saturday, May the 3rd, 3 to 5 p.m. We chose to schedule it on a Saturday instead of a Sunday because there were no Sunday afternoons available in late April or early May. Please stay tuned for more information and mark your calendars to attend. Saturday, May 3rd. Next, consider joining the map-making, Navigating Your Spiritual Journey session, which will begin on Thursday, March 27th. 7 to 9 p.m. There will be 6 bi-weekly sessions in which participants will be guided to work on their own spiritual exploration. If you're interested, contact Adult Learning at firstunitarianottawa.ca. Next, today after the service, there will be a conversation about the sermon in the library through the doors to your left. Next, last week we announced there will be a conversation and listening session today about Reverend Eric's leaving. This has been postponed until next week. Watch the EUU for details. Next, you will remember that the congregation stepped forward and we had a successful Help Staff Help Us campaign. Thank you again for your generosity. We want to remind you that while slightly exceeding the target we had set, the amount raised was not enough to recoup the full 10% reduction initially planned, and there will still be a staff and salary hour reduction of 5%. We can all help staff to continue to provide us with service by thinking about what we individually or as part of our committee can do that might otherwise be done by staff. Take on some tasks yourselves. Finally, from the Environmental Action Group, we have a new recycling program starting this weekend. We are collecting used writing instruments, old dead pens, markers, any brand, for a TerraCycle and Staples recycling program. For more information, see the climate action page. Don't forget, on February 27th, vote for the environment.
Jen, Phil, thank you. Bonjour tout le monde. Welcome everyone to the First Unitarian Congregation of Ottawa. Whether you are here in worship hall, building amazing things, or watching from wherever you may be, know that you are welcome here. This morning we continue our new monthly practice of special social justice offerings. With us today is our very special guest, Alex Neufeldt. We will give her a more thorough introduction in just a little bit. But let me say that Alex is a proud member of the Mennonite faith tradition, and I told her before the start of the service that when a former congregation I served didn't feel it could take into sanctuary an undocumented immigrant from Central America, the Mennonite church down the street did. And Edith stayed there in that building for 2.5 years. Our church provided some support, but it was the Mennonites who gave her a home. Continuing on now, I'm the Reverend Eric Meter, this congregation's lead minister.
And I'm Susan, your worship associate this morning. We acknowledge that our, I hope my voice will come back. We acknowledge that our FirstU campus is located on traditional, unsurrendered, and unceded Algonquin and Anishinaabe territory, and that the work of reconciliation is a responsibility of our congregation and of all Canadians. Our goal is to educate ourselves and all who have the willingness to understand, to be of service to those who are at risk, and to advocate for justice. And now, let's join our voices in song once more. Please rise in body or in spirit to sing together on the dusty earth drum. It's number 1071 in our teal hymnal. The lyrics will also be on the screen.
This is a new one for us, so a couple words about it before we begin. When we start, Fusion can sing it first, and you can join in the second time through if you would like. When we get to the third and fourth verses, we're going to add a little bit of a call and response around things. So you can, maybe if you're on this side of the room, you can start with the call, and on this side you can start with the response, or really do whatever you want. Nobody will stop you. So.
As health challenges continue, do take care and take advantage of online opportunities at FirstU to stay in touch. If you are new to FirstU and would like to learn more about us, please contact us through our email at welcome@firstunitarianottawa.ca. And if you are right here in Worship Hall with us this morning and would like more information about FirstU, it is available from Jane at the welcome table at the back of the pews. We encourage you to sign up to receive the EUU, our weekly email. Not there. We encourage you to sign up to receive the EUU, our weekly email newsletter. Sign-up information is available on our website under the EUU Weekly Newsletter tab, and you can access the EUU on the website by using the QR on the backs of our printed orders of service. Check our Facebook and Instagram pages and our website for notices and updates. Our calendar continues to be as full as ever, though some of our activities do take place online. This morning, each of us is welcome. We, of any heritage or faith, whatever our burdens, of any culture or race, of any gender or orientation, in any body, all that we are. Today, we are all a part of this spiritual community.
Thank you, Susan. Mike. To begin this morning's reflection on speaking truth to power in defense of a healthy planet and healthy lives, we light our chalice this morning to these words, adapted only slightly from my colleague, Angela Herrera. Don't leave your broken heart at the door. Bring it to the altar of life. Don't leave your anger behind. It has high standards, and the world needs its vision. Bring them with you, and your joy and your passion. Bring your loving and your courage and your conviction. Bring your need for healing and your powers to heal. There is work for us to do, and we have much of what we need to do it right here amid this gathered community. Our chalice is lit. Come, let us worship together as we begin singing once again our chalice song. Jen?
Chalice, chalice, burning bright, help remind us with your light of how we like to live each day with love and truth, helping lead the way.
Jody, you've got a story for us with some helpers.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Jody McIntosh, the Director of Religious Exploration. I ask anyone young or young at heart who would like to come up for the story. Today, I have two special guests with me. Hazel and Fenna will be helping me with the story this morning. Our book is called Old Enough to Save the Planet. Meet the kids just like you taking action against climate change, learn about the work they do, and discover how the future of our planet starts here with you. This book contains 12 stories of real children around the world who have done something to help with the climate crisis. So I have chosen, actually they've chosen, 2 of the stories to share with you today. So I will pass this on to Hazel.
I'm compassionate enough to protect animals. Hunter Mitchell from South Africa is a change maker for protecting endangered species. When he found out about an abandoned baby rhino, Hunter donated his pocket money to help the people looking after it, even though he was only 7 at the time. He persuaded lots of other people in his home country, South Africa, to give money toward caring for rhinos as well. He now talks to people all over the world about how important it is to look after all wildlife and prevent endangered species from becoming extinct. When a species becomes extinct, it means that there are no more of them left alive in the wild. Here are some facts about rhinos. Rhinos are being hunted because people want to take their horns. Some of these people believe that rhino horns are useful for making medicines, while others think they're a sign of wealth and success. Some people are so eager to get rhino horns that they kill the rhinos illegally, which is called poaching.
We're smart enough to stop buying single-use plastic. Amy and Ella Meek from the UK are change makers for the elimination of single-use plastics. After learning about negative effects of plastic waste, British sisters Amy, 16, and Ella, 14, set up a charity to share their knowledge about people involved in their work. They inform others about how we can replace single-use plastic bottles with reusable alternatives. They've created a website with lots of useful resources as well as an app to track plastic litter, and they've persuaded many schools, businesses, and city councils to make positive changes on how they use plastic.
Thank you, Fenna and Hazel, for sharing these stories. I thought it would be more relevant to hear youth voices telling youth stories, so thank you for joining us. So we are now going to come down to the Rainbow Room for our activity this morning.
A word before we move on to joys and sorrows. I was talking with a newer member of the congregation who arrived here a little late their first Sunday, and they were concerned by seeing people do this. I think it's helpful for us to bend our elbows and keep our fingers extended, folks. It kind of is important. Each week, we pause in our time together in recognition of the joys and sorrows in our lives and those across the globe. We honor our celebrations and challenges by placing stones in small bowls of water. As the ripples extend outward, imagine them continuing out beyond the small bowls, out through and past our pews, out into the larger community of all. Susan, can you help me by placing a couple stones this morning? I can't reach from here. A stone of joy and celebration with our own Marianne, who is celebrating her 80th birthday. A stone for Pope Francis, as he struggles with pneumonia. A stone for Keoki and his family. Keoki's grandfather died at 86 a few days ago. The man had been ailing, and his death was not unexpected. And a stone also for the people of Ukraine. Today marks the eve of the third anniversary of the Russian invasion. Against this background, we live our own lives. Please, you're welcome to come forward now to honor your joys, sorrows, and challenges by placing stones in bowls of water. Please come forward. Caring cards for Marianne and Keoki are at the back of the hall at the caring table for us to sign. Even if you don't yet know them, this is a way for us to extend our care and appreciation on behalf of those who have given so much of their hearts to this faith community. Let us move into a time of stillness and reflection now. After several moments, we'll come back together through the gift of music. now to introduce our guest speaker, Mike.
Good morning. The Environmental Action Group is active in many aspects of what we do here at FirstU, from greening the church to getting programs like EcoJustice going. Today, we're channeling our advocacy and our activist side as we welcome Alex Neufeldt. Alex is a 28-year-old Ottawa resident who cares deeply about climate change. She is one of the applicants in the Mathur et al. Climate lawsuit. It's the first of its kind in Canada, and it's the first of its kind to be held on its merits in court. She's had a unique career background, having initially studied economics and political science and worked in social policy, transitioning later into working in fashion. Alex was raised in the Mennonite church, which she feels influences her care for the land and for social justice. Please welcome Alex.
I almost forgot my phone. That would have been bad because that's where my notes are. You would have gotten a very rambly reflection. Thanks so much, Mike, for introducing me. I maybe should have given you a shorter bio as I was sitting there. I was like, I could have cut that down a little bit, but thank you for the warm welcome, everybody. I really appreciate being here. I don't get out to church as often as I would like. I blame my circadian rhythms that are not really aligned with waking up early on a Sunday morning. But I really do appreciate being here. It's a real pleasure, so thank you for having me. So my name is Alex Neufeldt, as a few people have said now. I live in downtown Ottawa, but I grew up in Markham, which is a suburb of Toronto, for those of you who know the area. I moved here about 10 years ago to study in French at the University of Ottawa, and as mentioned previously, yes, I grew up in the Mennonite church. Now, for those of you who are thinking horse and buggy when you hear Mennonite, I am probably related to those people, to be honest with you. We're all kind of related to each other. Well, not all of us, but a lot of us are kind of related to each other. However, obviously, that's not the tradition that I grew up in. The majority of us are pretty normal folks. We go to church on Sunday in a building not too dissimilar to this one, with traditions not too dissimilar to yours. In fact, I was looking through the hymn book for a while and was surprised to find that a lot of the songs were quite familiar to me. So kind of feels like home here a little bit. We're generally fairly unremarkable people, but while we might be, more or less normal today, most Mennonites, the founding of our faith tradition 500 years ago, I think this year is the 500-year anniversary. The poor people of Switzerland and the Netherlands are going to have a deluge of North Americans coming there to celebrate the 500-year anniversary of Anabaptism. Our early beliefs were anything but normal and typical. Mennonites' beliefs about adult baptism, pacifism, and refusal to fight in wars waged by expansionist rulers were seen as radical and dangerous at the time, and many Mennonites in the early church were exiled and brutally executed in some cases. Similarly, and I promise I'm going to get to climate change in a second, you're probably like, what is she going on about here? My impression is that Unitarians and Universalists also have rich traditions of resisting the powers that be, whether that be diverging theologically from the dominant ideas of the Catholic Church around the time of the Reformation, to rescuing people from the Nazis during World War II, and surely many more examples that I'm not aware of. And I wanted to highlight these histories of resistance because they inspire me to do what I do, but also I think it's good to remember these stories, and I hope that they will give us all hope and inspiration, because God knows we're going to need it in the times of injustice that we're seeing. So I hope these stories from our spiritual ancestors can give us all hope for the fight ahead. I'm going to have a glass of water because last time I gave this talk, I didn't have enough water, and I started crying partway through the talk because my throat was so dry. That was fun. So I'm not here to talk about Mennonite history or anybody else's history. I'm here to talk about climate change, and more specifically, a lawsuit that I'm participating in. I am one of the young adults suing the Ontario government over their greenhouse gas reduction targets in the Mathur et al. Case, which is a groundbreaking legal case for a variety of reasons. So a little bit of background. In 2018, the Ontario government canceled the province's cap-and-trade program, and in doing so also repealed the fairly strong climate targets that were in place at the time, replacing them with a single, much less ambitious target. I'm sure I don't have to tell you folks that climate change's contribution to extreme weather events has been deadly and will continue, unfortunately, to be deadly. We've seen firsthand with the Los Angeles wildfires, which apparently burned 57,000 acres of land in January. That's the time when you're not supposed to have fires like that. Not that it's ever great to have them, but you expect them a little more when it's warmer, not in January of all times. And then, of course, in Ottawa, we've gotten a taste of that ourselves when in 2023, our skies turned orange and everything smelled like burnt barbecue, and those of us with respiratory problems suffered a lot during that time. So that's just a taste of what's to come if we allow things to get worse. So anyway, after the province significantly weakened its climate targets back in 2018, EcoJustice, which is an environmental law charity who is kindly representing us, gathered together a group of 7 young climate activists from all across Ontario, and we filed our lawsuit against the provincial government in 2019. So our lawsuit alleges that their actions are an affront to our charter rights, specifically our right to life, liberty, and security of the person, as well as our right to equality as young people. So I just want to briefly pause here to say that my initial idea with this was to have a roving mic at the end and make time for a few questions, not a bajillion questions. We don't have all day, I'm assuming, but 3 or 4 maybe. Is that still good? Okay, so if you have a question pop up as I'm speaking, feel free to jot it down or keep it in the back of your mind because I will make some time for that. So our lawsuit, which is a charter case, so based on the Charter of Rights and Freedoms, which I think most of us are very proud of in this country. I think that's something that when Canadians are polled about what they're proud of, the charter is something that comes up a lot. So our case is a charter case, and it has had quite a lot of ups and downs since we first launched. So like other similar climate cases that have been launched in the past, the government tried to get our case dismissed. They hit us with a motion to strike, which is essentially where the party being sued tells the court that they think the case has no reasonable chance of success and that it does not even belong in court and should be thrown out. So we went to court for that, the first of many times we've been to court. That was in 2020. It was Zoom court, which was an interesting experience, and we got our first win from that. So for the first time in Canadian history, a court recognized that climate change has the potential to violate charter rights, and they gave us the green light to move ahead to a full hearing. So that was really exciting. That's already in legal textbooks and stuff like that, so, little hair flip for, legal textbook. That's, I guess, kind of exciting. So that certainly gave us a lot of hope and momentum to keep going. We had no idea if we would even get that far. But that was just the motion to strike, so that was just the beginning. So then it was time to actually go to court on the merits of the case and have the court hear the full argument. So we did that in 2022, and several months later in 2023, one of the things I've learned about the court system, it is very slow. So it was probably about 6 or even 9 months after that, we got the news that unfortunately our case was dismissed. We lost. So to boil it down, perhaps to the point of oversimplification, the court found that while climate change is real, thank goodness they found that. So while climate change is real and has the potential to violate charter rights, this is where it gets a little legally. It's not the, according to this judge, it's not the Ontario government's conduct, it's not their target that's violating our rights, it's climate change itself. So we're not suing climate change, we're suing the Ontario government. So anyway, so that was one of the reasons she dismissed it. The judge also found that what we're asking for is called a positive right. So I don't know if there's any lawyers or constitutional experts in the room. If not, that's okay. In order to understand what a positive right is, you need to understand what a negative right is. I promise I won't go too deep in the weeds into this because I don't necessarily understand it that well either. But a negative right in constitutional law in Canada essentially means that if the government is doing something that is causing harm and violating someone's charter rights, a court can order them to stop doing it. So they have to be doing a bad thing, and then the court can tell them, stop doing this bad thing. Whereas positive rights would be a court asking or ordering the government to proactively take action to prevent harm from occurring, even if the government hasn't actually done anything harmful. Positive rights have not been found to exist in Canadian law. So the judge found that what we were asking for was a positive right, and that's one of the reasons that she dismissed the case. Now, something that I've come to realize about our case is that we are really trying to ask Canadian courts to see things in a different way. So a conventional way of thinking about emissions reduction targets might be, well, the target the government set is not adequate, but it's better than nothing, so I guess what can we do? Our case essentially rejects that framing and is trying to show the courts that, no, this target is actually causing harm. So I'm going to get into a little bit of math here as a very hypothetical, oversimplified example. So say back in 2005, which is now 20 years ago, which is wild. Where did that time go? Am I right? So say back in 2005, Ontario's GHG emissions were 100 units. Units of whatever. This is just an example. Just 100 units. Make it easy. And say the government says, okay, by 2030, we're going to reduce our emissions by 30% compared to that 2005 level. So of course, 30% of 100 is 30. 100 minus 30 equals 70. So we're like, wait a second. So if your target is only 30%, that essentially means you're authorizing and greenlighting and allowing 70 units of that climate pollution into the atmosphere. Those 70 units that you're greenlighting are harmful. And also, so this is something that the judge who dismissed our case actually found as well, that they really can't be justified because if you calculate a carbon budget of how much any country or any jurisdiction is allowed to emit, what's an allowable amount of emissions for everybody based on how much emissions we have left, if you calculate it for Ontario, no matter how you slice it, whether it's a very generous allocation where, say, everybody in the world or every country in the world gets the same amount of emissions based on their population, that would be more generous to Ontario, even if you calculate it that way. And you're not calculating it in a less generous way where it's like looking into historical responsibility. So, of course, global north countries, and Ontario is part of that, are more historically responsible. So some people think we should be responsible for reducing more emissions. Even if you forget all of that and you're just like, everybody in the world gets the same amount of emissions based on their population. Ontario's target still blows past all of those calculations in terms of what we reasonably should be allowed to emit. The judge recognized that, who dismissed our case. She did recognize that, so that's established in Canadian law now. So even if you, now I'm lost in my notes this is what happens when you go off script. So even with all of that, Ontario, you can't justify these units of emissions that Ontario is emitting. So essentially we're saying this is causing harm. This is not a positive right. This is a clear-cut charter case. And so we, of course, didn't agree that the judge, with the judge dismissing our case. So we appealed, and the good news is that the Ontario Court of Appeal agreed with us and with our reading of the case, and it was a unanimous decision, so that certainly felt good. We got that news back in October, so we're still kind of riding that high of getting that news. And the funny thing they did is we kind of assumed that the Court of Appeal would say either you lose or you win kind of thing. They wouldn't say it in those words, of course. They would say it in like 30 or 100 pages of legalese. But we assumed it was going to be a fairly clear-cut decision. The interesting thing they did, though, was they said, okay, we agree with you. This is not a positive rights case. This is a standard charter case. Now, instead of dealing with the whole, is Ontario in the right or the wrong, what should the remedy be, we're going to send it back down to the lower court again to hear it all again with these new facts established. And we were kind of like, okay, that's not what we were expecting. That makes it a little longer, but I guess, courts want to be careful about making sure they're getting everything really right, so they want to take their time. So we're like, okay. Ontario was also not expecting that move, and they didn't really like the Ontario Court of Appeals ruling. So they have asked the Supreme Court to hear our case. Now, the Supreme Court of Canada doesn't have to take on every case that they've been asked to hear. They are quite selective, actually. I think it was only like 7% of cases last year that they were asked to hear that they actually heard. So we will see if they want to hear ours. We have a feeling they might want to, but it's not a given, obviously. So EcoJustice wrote on their website that Ontario's request to the Supreme Court opens the door to a generation-defining hearing at Canada's highest court, which could have far-reaching implications for how governments respond to one of the most urgent crises of the 21st century. So that would be exciting, obviously. A little nerve-wracking, because of course there would be the potential for it to undo all the progress we made if we got an unfavorable decision. However, the opposite is also true. This could completely be a game changer for how we deal with environmental issues, including climate change in this country. So we'll just have to see where it goes. It'll probably be a few months yet whether the Supreme Court wants to hear our case, and then if they do, it will be many months yet after that before we'd actually get to a hearing, so it's far from over. And then the last thing I am going to discuss before I take a few questions is, what would a win look like for us? That's something a lot of people ask. So obviously, if we win our case, it's not going to solve climate change. I wish it would, but sadly, that's not how things work. It's not going to magically make Ontario or Canada a climate leader either. However, it could alter the way that governments in this country deal with climate change, and it could kick open the door for other legal victories. So the first thing we're asking for is for courts to order Ontario to go back to the drawing board and create a new target that's science-based. The court may not want to do that because they may feel that takes their job a step too far. They might not feel comfortable doing that. You never know what could happen, though. We're asking for it. And then the other thing we're asking for, which I think is arguably more significant, is a declaration that the Charter of Rights and Freedoms can be understood to include protection from climate change. So in Canada right now, there is nothing about environmental rights in the Charter, so to have that kind of declaration, especially if it were to come from the Supreme Court, would be really groundbreaking and would change how governments all over this country, not just provinces, but also the federal government and municipalities, deal with climate change. So there you have it. A Mennonite, the province of Ontario, and possibly a trip to the Supreme Court in the future. So I'll leave it at that and take any questions that you have.
Questions, please raise your hand.
Hi, thanks so much. Astra Taylor has written a lot on positive rights and positive right interpretation of the Charter. I understand that the precedent is not in the favor of gaining rights through that framing, but do you think there's a possibility in the future of using a positive rights interpretation of the Charter to win further ground on these types of cases?
It's a good question, and I mean, my lawyers actually encourage us not to speculate about what could happen in the future, but I'm like, I like to speculate though, and I'm not a lawyer, so I'll just do it. So take what I say with a grain of salt, essentially, but I mean, I would love to see that, obviously, and the door is not completely closed to it, as I'm sure you know, and some people may also know. I think it was an Ontario Court of Appeal decision, actually, that said that positive rights may exist in Canada. So I guess people who are tuned into that, that kind of conversation are waiting to see if there will be a case that could be a positive right. And of course, our lawyer said, you know, we're not saying this is a positive rights case, but if you think it is, you know, this would be the right case to have that kind of positive rights. So yeah, maybe. We'll see. I would hope so.
I'm going to go here and then there.
So I'm wondering, has this approach been tried anywhere else in the world? And if so, how did that go? Or is this really the first time it's been tried here in Canada, what you're doing?
Good question. So, I mean, I guess, no, it's certainly not the first time it's been tried in the world. Of course, everybody's legal system is a little different. So, like we have our Charter of Rights, so of course this is the first time that it's been tried and been successful in the Canadian context. But for instance, in Montana, I think a lot of people have heard of Held versus Montana, I believe is that case, where it was young people as well who took the Montana government to the court and successfully won in terms of climate rates. Now, in my opinion, they had a little bit of an advantage just because in Montana's constitution, the state constitution, there is something about environmental rights in there. So if you have that kind of language in your foundational legal documents already, that makes it a little bit easier. But there's the Urgenda case in the Netherlands. There's Klimatet Senioren, I think it's called, in Switzerland, which is a group of senior women, I believe, who just had a great victory. So I would definitely, yeah, if you're not familiar with that case, I definitely recommend looking into it because it's really inspiring. Yeah, thank you.
Hi, Alex.
Hi. We know each other.
We know each other. And I've asked you this question before, but I'm always interested in what the impact on you has been of all this work, because your name and your face is out there very publicly. What's that like?
Yeah, that's a good question, and it was something I was concerned about before getting involved. I ran a business at the time, and so there was some concern that, you know, people who are against EcoJustice, because there are a lot of people who are against them, they get like threats, you know, somewhat regularly, most not very credible, but occasionally the one or two that are credible. So there was a bit of concern that like somebody might try to hack my website, or that like my address was online because it was like my business's address, so had to try to scrub that and stuff like that. So that was a bit scary. Luckily, nothing has come of it. But with employment and stuff as well, it can be a bit of a challenge. Like, you know, certain organizations, public sector organizations, but private as well, are not necessarily thrilled to hear that you're suing the government and may have some questions about that. So I've had a lot of discussions about that. Having good lawyers is obviously key if you want to do something like that, to be aware of what your rights are, because you know, people are not necessarily there to protect your rights. They're there to, in HR and whatever, or values and ethics, they're there to protect their own organization. So yeah, having good lawyers has definitely been key. Overall, I felt very supported throughout the process, and it's actually been quite positive. I would say it's, you know, climate change hasn't gotten better since 2019 when we launched the case, but I do feel more hopeful despite that fact, and I think it's because taking action does breed hope, whereas inaction can breed despair at times. So I think, you know, there have been challenges, I won't lie, but overall, I would do it again. Like, I probably won't do it again, but if I had to, you know, it is a lot suing the government, but, you know, if I had to do my life over, I would make the same choices I have now. Thanks.
I think we have time for one question before we move on. But Alex, I just want to clarify, you will be willing to join our after-church discussion at least for a little bit, is that?
Yeah, I think at least for like 15 or 20 minutes I should be able to be there.
Terrific.
Yeah.
Glad to have you there. I also want to say that in our morning offering in just a few minutes, 100% of non-designated donations will go to EcoJustice. So I would invite everyone to join me in being as generous as we can be. And here's our last question.
Thank you, and this is actually a segue to that. Can you tell me more about EcoJustice? How big an organization is it, and what other legal challenges, if any, there are?
Great question. They are quite large, from my understanding. They have quite a variety of legal challenges, and typically they represent organizations, or sometimes they will sue as an organization themselves. It's very rare for them to just represent people the way they are with us. For instance, southern resident killer whales, like this is only one small part of what they do, right? But that's something they've been really involved in. There's only like, what, less than 20 southern resident killer whales left or something like that. So they've been really active in challenging the government through every avenue possible to protect those really important animals. Anytime basically the government does something around the environment where something is being repealed, or made worse in some way, they'll be active in challenging that. And I'd invite you to visit EcoJustice.ca, I believe is the website, if you'd like more information. They are quite a large organization and quite active, but I think they occupy kind of a unique niche in terms of it's like primarily lawyers on staff. So they're a little bit different from other environmental organizations in that regard. All right, well, thanks everybody. It was a pleasure to speak to you today, and I look forward to speaking to you all after. Thanks.
Well, thank you, Alex, so much for being with us today and for the amazing work that you're doing on behalf of all of us. This is so important and amazing and really inspiring to hear about today. Our choral anthem this morning is going to be performed by Fusion Choir. The song is Earth Song by Frank Ticelli. And this is a text which really it evokes the devastation of, he actually did write it about war, but the descriptions you'll see are also very connected to the devastation of climate change and relate to that very much. And at the end, he sort of talks about how art, music in this case, but art in general can be a way through the despair and the anxiety that can be so paralyzing when we face things like that, and how that can be a tool for us to help inspire us to action and hope and just continuing on.
Thank you, Fusion, and thank you, Alex, for your inspiring remarks. Will the ushers please start passing the offering baskets? Thank you. Again this morning, our special justice collection will be dedicated with 100% of all unidentified donations going to support the work of EcoJustice. This congregation has a long history of care, vitality, and bringing people together to move the arc of justice forward. We have been able to live into our hopes and dreams because of the generosity of those within and beyond this community. Whether you are here in Worship Hall or anywhere else, you are part of this community. We rely on one another to keep this congregation vital and resilient. If you have any questions about how you can give, please go to our website or contact our finance manager to find out how to make a donation or keep up with your pledge. Also, those in Worship Hall can use the QR code on the back of the order of service to make an online donation. Now, let us sing together once more. Please rise in body or spirit as Jen introduces and then leads us in singing For the Earth Forever Turning, number 163 in our gray hymnal. The words will also be up on the screen.
Please be seated. Before we begin to close this time of worship and reflection, a reminder that food and household items from our grocery support program are available to any who would like some from the room adjacent to Fellowship Hall. Again, the grow towers have been taken down for the season. And again, a reminder that our after-service discussion will start in the lounge momentarily, and that Mia's Indian Cuisine will once again be offering lunch for sale in Fellowship Hall. If you are new here,
got to find my little prop. Please pick up a green mug as you enter Fellowship Hall. Doing so will help others looking for a good conversation find you. And if you see someone sporting their favorite post-worship beverage in one of these, approach them and get ready for a wonderful conversation. Also today we have fair trade items for sale in Fellowship Hall as well. Now, as we prepare to extinguish our chalice this morning, let these words by Ruben Alves be our guide. And these words are a little more in line with blue-green hills of earth than the great white north. He writes, "So let us plant dates, even though we who plant them will never see them. We must live by the love of what we will never see. That is the secret discipline. It is the refusal to let our creative act be dissolved away by our need for immediate sense experience. And it is a struggled commitment to the future of our grandchildren." Our chalice may be extinguished this morning, but the spark of our faith resides in all of us. Jen, will you bless us again by leading us in our closing song, Spirit of Life, which you'll find as number 123 in your teal hymnal and also above. We'll sing it first in English and then en français. Please rise, everyone, once more, in body or in spirit. Dear friends, as we, each of us, and us together, return to the joy and the challenge of helping the world come alive in love, let today's words stay with us. Stay with us, stay with us. Our future, our children, deserve our best. Let's not let them down. Thank you. Thank you.